And so now I think we can, right out of Jump Street, understand that there's a vast difference between that which is laid out for the layman and that which is known by the power brokers, okay? And we need to be at least as wise as serpents, as harmless as doves, and understand the difference between those, run up our antennas of discernment as high as we can get them. It has not generally, again, been applied to large-scale organizations or combinations in the fields of finance and the so-called natural monopolies, although the terms money trust and power trust are sometimes heard. In some uses, the term is broad enough to cover the various types of monopolistic agreements and pools. And then parenthetically, the author includes cartels in European terminology. Now, remember Nathan Rothschild, we shared the article right off of Bloomberg. He's in the business now. What he wants to do is he wants to build a corporation, a cartel, if you will, of all the coal producers, big enough to rival the big miners that are out there. All right. A new cartel, so maybe they will use a trust system in this. Continuing, which have existed in American industry. I'll say it again. The various types of monopolistic agreements and pools which have existed in American industry. Again, originally written back in 1935, I believe, no, 1934, and the issue that I have reissued in 1937. Still early on. When they talk about the war in this book, they're talking about the First World War. Continuing. More precisely, it refers to forms of organization, trust proper, quote-unquote, trust proper, corporate mergers. You know, this has been the past decade, has been the decade of mergers and acquisitions. And it's still happening. It's happening today. And this is one of the reasons why I go to the Bloomberg website every morning. Not just because, you know, I'm lazy and don't want to search around. It's because I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what's coming down in New York City, or as I like to say, New York City. And I like to keep an eye on Michael Bloomberg. All right? $200 million to become the mayor. Rewrote the legislation there in the area so that he could be reelected. What a beast this guy is. Anyway, let's continue, not get off track on him. Corporate mergers, holding company groups or combines, wherein a formal concentration of control is achieved over previously competing business units on a large scale and with monopolistic intent or result. We talked about the Koch brothers, Fred Koch, you know. They practice this economic model by Schumpeter, this idea of creative destruction. Creative destruction. Look at Warren Buffett, all right? Mr. Monopoly man with the little bow tie. Bow tie, Warren. In relation to the general movement toward industrial combinations, the term may be said to exclude large-scale organizations into which the purpose or result of control of the market does not enter. Vertical combination, however complete, would not impress upon an enterprise the stamp of a trust unless the horizontal combination at some point of contact with the market were sufficient to create the prospect of control. You know, the Rockefellers hated, loathed, despised, and detested competition. And so we're changing the level of the discussion here as we transition into this set of encyclopedias. All attempts to define a trust precisely, because you see we're bringing in vertical combinations, horizontal combinations, pools, trusts, all this stuff, trust propers, money trusts, power trusts, prospects of control. Whole different thing going on here now. All attempts to define a trust precisely are in the nature of the case bound to fail. Again, this is the mastery and the mystery of law. What is a trust? Well, it is whatever it is we created. It was by the intent of the settler, remember? However, since the forms and degrees of control of the market are so numerous and various, on the one hand, while the modes in which the markets operate are usually described in terms of the antipodal systems of competition and monopoly, the facts seldom correspond clearly to either. On the other hand, while the fusion or federation of numerous erstwhile competitive enterprises usually affords some degree of domination in a market, the growth of a single concern may give it a commanding position in the trade, overtowering not only that of independent rivals, but also that of consolidations. Now we're talking the language of business, folks. Now we're getting into why the Germans scared the crap out of England and others in Europe. They were really coming on the scene, the Canard lines and all that. They were really coming on the scene at the time period. They were threatening the empire, if you will, the British Empire, and even the American Empire. They were outsmarting and outthinking. They were resourcing to very, very brilliant people for their advice, seeking advice from the best sources. It may perhaps be said, nevertheless, that there is some approximation toward agreement upon confining the term to industrial situations or setups, characterized by a relatively permanent form of organization, an element of combination, and a substantial degree of market control. Things are changing here a little bit. Go in and take a look at this in the closing moments, just a little bit more out of this particular, here we go, rolling it back up, Uniform Trust Code, again, drafted by the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws, introduced this yesterday, and by it, approved and recommended for enactment in all the states at its meeting in its 130th year in Portland, Oregon, July the 30th through August 6th of 2004. Copyright in 2005 by the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws. The National Conference of the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws, the NCCUSL, now in its 114th year. Now just do the math, back up, right smack back in just before the turn of the century, 1890s, just like the 1990s for us. Now in its 114th year, provides states with nonpartisan, well-conceived, and well-drafted legislation that brings clarity and stability to critical areas of state statutory law. There's an all-out war raging between legal positivism and the natural law. That in the rise of statism, the state has arrogated unto itself all of the natural law, returned as codified, statutory, regulated privileges, licensable, taxable, and revocable. Well-conceived, non-partisan, no-name party, well-conceived, well-drafted legislation. The National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws. Conference members must be, listen now, must be lawyers, qualified to practice law. They are practicing lawyers, judges, legislators, and legislative staff, and law professors. See conflict of interest there anywhere? I do. Practicing lawyers, and the judges, and the legislators. I thought there was three branches of government. And legislators, and their legislative staff. We just brought in a bunch of Tea Party people, but they didn't get a chance to choose the staff in Washington. It was chosen for them. They're the legislative staff. They're intergenerational. And law professors. Let's go ahead and blend in academia. Let's go ahead and get that workforce trained up in this particular branch of uniform law before the young people even get their sheepskin, who have been appointed by state governments. You don't have any control over this. You have no say in this, but these people are writing the law. They're never elected, they're appointed. By whom? By state governments, as well as the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Let's drag all the territories in. To research, to do what? To research, draft, and promote enactment of uniform state laws in areas of state law where uniformity is desirable and practical. The Commission strengthens the federal system by providing rules and procedures that are consistent from state to state, but that also reflect the diverse experience of the states. Statutes are representative of state experience because the organization is made up of representatives from each state appointed by state government. The Commission keeps state laws up to date by addressing important and timely legal issues. The plot just thickens and thickens. Folks, have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back on Monday. Hope you will be too. And until the next time,